All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. It says we're live. How about we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2. Likes. Happy. Make sure you come back later and leave a comment. Yeah. Hope you all good looking sexy people are doing well out in Happy Land today. Make sure you check me out. I am your humble Grand Wizard of the Esoterics, a message to America. The spirit of 70 message to America in 5, 4, 3. Two, one. You want to chat? Keep it open for a little while. It's delays here on the YouTubes. That's okay. Your Grand Wizard of the Esoteric Order of Dagon, Frater Francis Lunas Aristeus, transmitting to you today from Twilight Zone, Old Peking, in the central kingdom of the Celestial Dragon, far behind the bamboo firewall. Once again. Who's Peanut? Oh, Peanut. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. I didn't even know about Peanut. That's interesting. Yeah, Nunu, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well out there in the great land of America, home of the brave and the free. Let freedom ring, everyone. Message to America. The spirit of 1776 is in the air again. MAGA, I believe, is a rallying cry for us to obey God and natural law. Now, we can expound the truth of life, that the focus of our reality here on planet Earth is the mother and father as the core of the family, a family that values life, the sanctity of marriage, and the seriousness of sex for procreation. Certain things should never just be used as an expedient for your convenience. Wow. Hopefully we can overcome that in the coming future. It's all about protecting country, heritage, community, and family. It's absolutely fundamental as the duty of every American citizen. All the fears that the left are pushing right now, you know, they're fucking in meltdown. They're literally rolling around on the ground in a dirty diaper, sucking on their thumb, banging a rattle, and crying for mama. I mean, it just truly shows you how deep they are into the insanity of the mainstream media. It's the mainstream media that has been poisoning the minds of people for so long. As an American citizen, which I am, and I took very seriously, and I put in my 2 cents this go around, and I'm glad that it worked out the way it did. You know, all these fears they're pushing, they're not true for folks that espouse making America great again, right? They talk about loss of freedoms for women, minorities, and the LGBT community. That's just horseshit. Those things shouldn't be the forefront of our culture anyway, right? We know what a woman is. Natural law dictates it. There's men and women in the world, right? Anyone who deviates from that, it's just a form of perversion, which is okay if that's what you want to do, but it should never be made as a mainstream value of America. America, first and foremost, is a Christian nation. It's like 75% of the people there espouse Christian virtues, which are what? You know, loving thy neighbor as thyself, turning the other cheek, fellowship, community. They're all good values. These people aren't out to get you. The opposite is true. Those folks who say, that they're the ones, they have these fears because they're projecting them onto us. We stayed silent for so long, right? We stayed silent for so long, and now our voices have been heard. The American people have voted. Some 90 million popular support for Mr. T, only probably 40 or 50 million for the other guy, right? So let's deal with them one by one. They talk about restricting the freedoms of women. That's never going to happen. Trump loves women. He loves his wife. He wants all the women of America to have a fair shake. I mean, if you've watched him for any length of time, he's promoted women that do a good job just as much as he would promote a man or a colored folks, right? They talk about minorities, totally untrue. They've always tried to paint him as racist. It's never been that way. I mean, listen to the people who actually lived around him and hung out with him in New York. He'd show up at the black jazz bars and hang out with those guys just like he would hang out with anyone else. So it's just absolute garbage. And then they talk about fascism. Isn't fascism trying to strip away the rights and freedoms of the American people who have made a democratic choice, right? They voted for this individual because he represents making America great again. Yeah. Cheaper fossil fuels, a better economy, more jobs, honoring the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. The Constitution is the foundation of the American nation, of the USA, the United States of America. That's what it's all about. It's all about bravery, freedom, self-reliance, and independence. These things because they've grown up in a public education system that has taught them to hate themselves, right? Down, beat him up. He's white. Steal his shoes, steal his jackets. They're somehow better than us. We're preyed upon constantly. I didn't even know the difference between white and black until drive-by shootings would roll through our neighborhoods. And I'd get up gang jumped routinely for my shoes. Come on, man. That's just never been the other way around. I've never met white folks who went into black communities and preyed on them. Maybe at an institutional All right. And we're back. I got bumped out of the chat there for a minute, so I had to reboot. That's what it's like when you're behind the bamboo firewall in Twilight Zone, old Peking, deep within the central kingdom of the celestial dragon. Yes, all is well. So get on the Trump train. MAGA 2025, make America great again. Espouse your American values and freedoms while you still have them, because there was going to be a real dark period for folks if they had once again been able to shoehorn in one of their corporate political puppets. Trump truly loves the American people. He truly wants what's good for the general American. And that's a fact. He always has. He's a businessman. He didn't even want to run for president, right? He said, if there's anybody out there better than me that can step forward to do the job, then do so. And nobody stepped up to the plate. Nobody wanted to take on the big game. He didn't even accept his first 4 years, his first term. He didn't even take the salary of the presidency. He just redonated it back into the system. I mean, this is a guy who's independently able to do things that need to get done. He didn't do the most perfect job, but he did quite a bit in his first term. It was quite an amazing thing. We have got a Jew boy in the background. It says, "You're a Jew boy." Not sure who that is. I don't see a pic loading, and so I don't want to get porn bombed at this time. Probably one of our friends over at Team Evil, right? So I've got no platform for Team Evil. You can back out, sir. I am in fact Jewish. I'm a German-Irish Jew. Not that that's any of your goddamn business. I don't think it has anything to do with you. So my message to America is straight and straightforward and simple. This is a good thing. The left accuses the right of doing all of these evil things, which in fact they themselves are guilty of. They're the ones that have been shitting in the well, pissing in the soup, and destroying the spirit of the American people. We should value our forefathers who sacrificed so much to attempt to establish a nation that would espouse values that the world had never seen before. Freedom from tyranny, right? Independence, freedom for every man, woman, and child that is available. Let's see, we've got someone in the private chat, and yeah, they are valueless. So goodbye, sir. Yeah. So anyway, we had a guest backstage, but he's a turd. He's the leader of Team Evil. He goes by the Clown King, Queen Stefan of the Insanity Machine, and I have no time for that. Queen Stefan. Last time he was on here, he was just ranting and going insane. I think because recently he got 2 community strikes for being just a huge turd. I thought his channel got shut down. I mean, I don't care either way, but I'm not going to waste my time entertaining a goofball like him. So that's my rant, guys. There's good times ahead. The golden light of the divine is shining down on all of us right now, right? We won fair and square. Those who support making America great again, that's a bad fucking thing. What would you rather some other third world country become great? The United States is the only country that's poised in the world to represent freedom, justice, and equality for all people. It's been the standard mission statement of the United States since day one. The spirit of 1776 launched from the Green Dragon Tavern in Boston, Massachusetts, in rebelling against the tyranny of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom forced the slave trade into the Americas. Americas didn't want it. They didn't fucking need those people to cultivate the land there and interact with the new land of promise and hope. They didn't need it or want it. It was foisted upon them, right? And they were being usurped time and time again. No taxation without representation. You can take your tay and shove it up your ass. Enough was enough. And they formulated a system that were based on ancient pagan beliefs, right? The cyclical rotation of power, the flow of everything headed toward the west across the Great Pond, and they freed the pilgrims and the peoples of the Americas. Of course, it was abused, right? When Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and George Washington were establishing the Continental Congress, and they wrote out the Constitution. Jefferson made it far too religious for Benjamin Franklin's bon vivant sensibilities. And he said, hey, got to tone back the God stuff. We'll make this applicable to all people, right? We're going to respect freedom of religion for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a Jew, an Islam, a Christian, a Buddhist, a Taoist, a Hindu. We value the spiritual expression and the spirit empowering the nation, right? And so they put God up as in God we trust, and they allowed enough freedom for everyone to have a voice in the public discourse. It's these other people who want to shut us down, the ones that have worked so hard to make this happen, working from the shadows with the Star-Spangled Banner beating in their red-blooded heart to bring forward a message of there's got to be course correction. It just went way too far out into fucking fantasy land. You know, free drugs for everybody on the street, a welfare state, not prosecuting criminals who murder your children and come in swinging their dicks in your kindergarten class in full drag. Enough is enough. It's gone too far. There needs to be a course correction. There needs to be a dialing back towards center. And even that, there needs to be a little bit of an over course correction and a return to some of the Boy Scout values that I grew up with. Yeah, I grew up a Boy Scout, man, and I love that shit. The U.S. Scouts motto is be prepared. What's wrong with that? Americans are preppers. They want to be prepared. They want to have things at the ready. Because if you're not prepared, you can't help yourself. You can't help other people. It's just basic common sense. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, they want to keep the people in fear. Their fears are not our fears, right? We need to have a new great aeon of Boy Scout style ethics, in my opinion, right? What's the Boy Scout slogan? It's do a good turn daily. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with doing good for other people? You don't have to force it upon them. That's the huge difference. We would never force our values onto other people. We follow them like the great bald eagle flying through the sky with all its glory and majesty and freedom. And then the other birds look up and they say, wow, that's amazing. Look at the heights of the eagle. If only I could soar that high. And that's what the rest of the world did for 200 years. They looked up to the United States as the leader of freedom and dignity and justice and a high moral standing. Right? The oath of the Boy Scouts is on my honor. I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country. And for me personally, I think we should add community and family into this oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God, my country, my community, and my family. I mean, obviously, that's included in country. And to obey the Scout law. I want to help other people at all times. This is the Scout law right here. To help other people at all times. And the last part of this is really great. To keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight, right? It's not just about being physically strong, the body, all right? It addresses the body, mind, and spirit. Mentally awake, there's the mind, the psyche, right? The powerful mind, the all mind, the creator of our reality. Right, the all mind, the one God, and morally straight. That's the big problem. They've lost a moral compass, right? You can't abuse children and women and minorities. Obviously, that's not and nobody wants to do that. That's what they've been doing. They've been estranging these communities and flooding drugs into these communities to poison them. And then the women, they're not letting them reproduce. They're taking them with the whole Planned Parenthood agenda and robbing their entire communities of life and strength and dignity. Nobody wants to live like that. Nobody wants to live with drug addicts all around you and gang violence and wanton sexual relationships where there's no father in the family. It's destroying the fabric of America. I've seen it from the biggest cities in the US, Los Angeles, California, where I grew up, to the smallest rural towns in America, Old Union in West Tennessee, where my mother's family was from. And I spent a few years when I was going to college and stuff in that neighborhood. And I've seen the strategic implementation of the left's plan to destroy the fabric of America with drugs and rock and roll and all of these other things. Sure, that's fine and dandy for a full-grown adult if they want to indulge in that a little bit. It's not great. It's not morally straight, but there should be a certain amount of tolerance for adult entertainment, right? But to let that infiltrate into the level of the children and to expose children to this type of perversion and deception and to foist upon them this deceit of instant gratification in a world of TikTok glamour is totally fucking wrong. It's pig-headed, it's wrong, and it's horse shit. And we've been opposing it ourselves internally through our minds and our spirits and working hard with our nose to the grindstone. But enough is enough. The mission of scouting, of the U.S. Scouts, is to contribute to the education of young people through a value system based on the Scout Promise and the Scout Law, right? So we want young people to be morally straight, mentally awake, and physically strong. And after they've grown, and gotten their way through school, K through 12, and then probably done, another 4 years of higher education where they engage in critical thinking and the study of literature and debating ideas, right? No matter what the landscape, if the family core is strong, then your children will even go into these institutions with a backbone, and they'll be able to oppose this communist, Marxist, leftist message that's been poisoning the well for far too long now. I saw it at an early age. When I was young, my dad was a businessman in Los Angeles. He's a retired Navy guy. I spent 22 years in the Navy, fought through World War II, the Korean conflict, and all the way into the Vietnam era. He was there on a ship. He was raised by the ship because he came from a broken family and he had to be raised by the U.S. Navy. So he made a choice that when our family, my family, him and my wife, him and my mother, raised their children in Long Beach, California, as a retired Navy veteran of 2 world wars, essentially, or not World War I, but the big Asiatic War, the Pacific operations, right? That they would raise us without military, in a military standard, but Boy Scouts, regular schools, and to stay private individuals, because he made the sacrifice and he didn't want his children making that same sacrifice. And he wanted us to grow up with the core 1950 values that he grew up with, that you pick yourself up by the bootstraps and you work hard, right? Exactly. Do a good turn daily. You flake down the hose when you're done using it. You jump up in the morning. First thing you do is make your bed and get busy working. My father's work ethic was so great that it was instilled within me just by watching him. You get up every morning and you grind against the machine and try to make small gains and always try to save more than you spend and always try to make a little progress. He never made great gains in any significant way. He became a pretty well-renowned businessman in Los Angeles and San Diego, but that was done through gradual accumulation, through the day-to-day grind. I mean, imagine that. Him being there in Paramount, me growing up on the border of Compton and Long Beach. If I wandered into the wrong neighborhood, I got attacked for the color of my skin. I never saw that in my neighborhood. If colored folks wandered through our neighborhood, nobody cared, give them a big greeting, give them an apple pie or something on their way through. But when I walked into those other neighborhoods, I was violently attacked every single time just for the color of my skin. Anti-Whiteism has been so rampant, and it started early. Started in probably the mid to late 70s, into the crack cocaine-fueled 80s of white flight and disenfranchising the middle class that served and paid in blood and tears during World War II. And that was launched by intelligentsia within the universities there in LA, along with apparatus that sought that out of jealousy for balanced, stable families. They were so fucking jealous. It just it grinded their gears that these guys who served and sacrificed everything and came back to the US and could have a little A-frame home with a car and start a business or engage in the economy and had a pretty little wife and cute little children. It just grinded their gears. And the Hollywood machine of disinformation and misinformation and malinformation worked day and night to destroy the American dream, to recast the American white male as a sissy and a pansy and a homosexual and a deviant and not valuable, and try to poison and make everything wrong with him. And that was not the neighborhoods that I grew up in. Everyone was working hard, smiling, friendly to everyone, but it was their white paper operation by the intelligentsia to destroy the American spirit. And it worked for a lot of folks, man. It really hit hard for a lot of folks that didn't know their ass from a hole in the ground and couldn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just weren't willing to do it. You know, they wanted the goodies, they wanted the freebies, they wanted the handouts, they wanted the ability to not think, to not participate in the political system, right? To not be an honorable, upstanding individual. They wanted to lounge in the bars and destroy their minds with free drugs and free love. But that is not a representation of the American spirit. That's a representation of an infiltration of an evil spirit that did so out of maliciousness and extreme jealousy. I mean, how could you be jealous of a regular, ordinary family, man and wife, and cute little kids working away with the white picket fence every day, pushing at the grind, trying to make their lives better? Why did that make them so insidiously malicious towards that? Because they hated it. They hate all forms of goodness. They hate all forms of normalcy. They want everything in chaos. They wanted guys running around, raping and pillaging, and engaged in complete madness, because they know that ordo de chaos, that they can bring about their new world order, or whatever that may be, through the chaos of the disintegration of core American values. You know what? And that era is going to be over for a little while. It's not going to last forever. We have to seize the day. Carpe diem. We really have to take hold of this opportunity to re-implement a value system based on the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and basic Boy Scout style moral guidance. That's just, it's a fact. I mean, it's a real easy thing to see, but you got to do it in your day-to-day life. We got to get out there, you know, whether we be keyboard warriors from behind the dark mirror, or if we're out there in the day-to-day in the service industry or the manufacturing industry, transportation, especially in education. It's become such a battlefield in education. You guys know that I work in academia, and it's actually been better over here with traditional values and conservatism than it has been in the US. Like, I can't even imagine going into the cesspool of the American education system right now. But thankfully, that's going to be one of the big policy shifts up front, right? Is seizing back control of the God-given rainbow, not the fake LGBTQ plus Android rainbow, but the rainbow that God gave the people after the Great Flood, right? The rainbow that was provided, the coloration of the material sphere of colored dust when everything was illuminated, and we saw the great celestial dome, and we knew the level firmament was all there for the utilization of man to perfect himself towards the great work. Because the great work is, before all things, perfection of man by himself, right? Pulling himself up by the bootstraps, self-reliance, getting total and complete control of his faculties and his future. Having control of your faculties means that you can't have an excessive reliance on illicit drugs that poison your mind, or alcohol that drunken the spirit and make you unable to make correct choices, right? Roll that back. We've already proven that we've got an extremely good whiskey and beer industry. We know how to make it. The Irish and the Germans came over. The entire United States is German-Irish immigrants. 150 million German descent, 80 to 100 million Irish descent, and probably 20 to 30 million Jew. And I just happen to be the best of all three worlds as a German-Irish Jew, born in the United States, born and bred Los Angeles, California. We represent a turning point, right? That there can be all of those things that the Constitution promises, that we can get the government under control, right? We shouldn't even be that worried about who's president anyway. He's basically the waiter in the restaurant, right? We need to do the hard work. We're the ones that have to get out there in the day-to-day grind and let people know that we stand for American values and truth and freedom and justice and liberty and all of those great things. We kept our voices quiet too long. We let those other folks run roughshod over our Christian values and destroy what our forefathers worked so hard for to leave to posterity. And I don't know, when I was younger, I somehow, I blamed the people who were the supposed to be the safeguarders of those freedoms. Like my dad kind of backed out in his business career from political involvement, and he turned down the opportunity to engage in it because he thought it was horse shit. But look where it went. It is to some extent horse shit, but you still need to be involved, right? According to Socrates and Plato, Aristotle, all of those, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, when you reach 40 years of life, then you should become somewhat politically active, because you have to protect and safeguard those values for the next generation. And if you don't do it, somebody else will, and they'll do a really bad job, right? Once again, Jonathan or John, did not choose this. He stepped forward because there wasn't anyone else of value to do so. His first time forward, he faced the great crone, right? The cackling, evil goblin witch and her minions, and a woman who truly represented the greatest of all evil, the illicit importation of Colombian cocaine into the United States and its distribution throughout the continental United States. That alone nearly destroyed the US. And now it's fentanyl, all right? And it's that same group of Dixieland mafia that are up to their old tricks. And we got to stand against them. We got to stand strong. You can't let your local sheriff run a criminal organization in your county. You have to vote him out. You have to vote in a sheriff who's willing to stand for constitutional values and the Bill of Rights. You gotta do the work. If there's nobody else that can do it, then you got to step up and do it. And I intend in my future, provided I've got enough energy left once I get my kids through college, to do just that. No drugs for this hombre. Well, some medications are important, and there should be a certain amount of that, I believe. The American people have somewhat embraced cannabis as an alternative to alcoholism, at least. But it's sticking your head in the sand, no matter what it is, whether it be alcohol or cannabinoids or jellies or whatever. That's all a behavior of trying to hide from the reality and truth of the world, which I've never been big on. The occasional toke, yeah, it's all fun and games, right? The occasional grog for me laddies, on when we're deep in the Irish folk tunes is fine and dandy. I was in Dublin recently, and I think a little bit of that is okay, and it should be allowed for hardworking adult individuals to engage in a certain amount of that. But it shouldn't be the forefront of the culture. None of that should be. Any deviation from the basic standard values of working hard to get things done and supporting your community and doing things that we know are morally straight should be the forefront of the culture. this deviation into these deep depraved perversions are, I mean, obviously we can tolerate it to a certain extent, but again, it shouldn't be the spearhead of the American people. It makes us look really bad, not only as a nation, right, but it makes us look bad internationally, and it makes us look bad in front of the one great creator of the cosmos. He doesn't take a day off, right? The all mind, the one God, he doesn't take a day off to engage in debauchery and this type of hiding from the cosmos. No, every single day, rising the sun and the moon in their unerring course of direct transmission of universal law, the alternating of the seasons from spring into summer into the harvest season and then into winter again. The creation process doesn't take any time off. It doesn't stick its head in the sand and cover its clarity up with drug abuse and perversion. So natural law is easy to see. It's like the sun and the moon, right? The great King Solomon, wizard king of ancient times, Sol O Mon, the sun and moon, the man representing the fiery, passionate spirit of the masculine energy in the family, and the woman representing the docile, collective, reflective, mutable energy in the family. That is the core foundation of a strong family. You have a strong family, you get a strong community, you get strong kids that are morally straight, then you can have a strong state, and then it can just like ripples in a pond. It can affect the entire world. And the U.S. has only been the only one poised to represent those traditional values globally. Everybody else has pretty much, they've turned their back on it. They've gone into these realms of deviation where they just make it too complex. And it isn't that fucking complicated. It's 50 white stars on a blue field, red and white stripes down the side, and it represents those core values of freedom, liberty, and justice for all. All right, it's a very simple message. And I hope that going forward into the future, everyone is able to, I hear you, Nunu. I'm watching the chat down here. Nunu's bringing some great energy to the ideas room with a lot of good ideas that represent and reinforce this message of freedom and liberty. And requires bravery, right? We know that it requires one to dare to know, to dare to act, and then to be silent. So this silent suffering, strength through silence, and just the hard grind, day to day, trying to make things better. That's the way it works, man. That's the American dream. I watched a Chinese family, good friends of mine, that the dad came into the U.S. through New York, 18 years old, said he had the equivalent of about $4 in his pocket, hit the streets of New York, busting his ass, knew about the American dream, thought it was a good idea, and saved up all of his money, and then moved to a rural part of the United States, took himself a little wife, got married, started a business, and has worked 7 days a week for 32 years, every day of his life, seldom taken a day off, continued to save money and treat people good and make damn good American Chinese food there in the U.S. Really honorable folks. They're the Wong family. They recently encountered a situation where some redneck came in and told the Wong, Jenny Wong, to get the fuck out of the U.S. and go back to China. And it was really heartbreaking. And it even made national news. It made state news. I don't know if it got into national news, but it went viral on a TikTok video. Someone filmed it. And I thought, oh, how heartbreaking. Those people are more American than your average American. They weren't born there, but they came in with the idea of the American dream and they made it happen. I worked with the folks. I've been friends with them since 89 or 1990, something like that. And so now it's 2024. So when they first moved to that area, my family became familiar with them, and because I was already interested in Chinese culture, I went down there all the time and became really good friends with that family, and watched them, day in and day out over the years build their own little nest egg and put 5 kids through college. They had and raised 5 diehard American children that are ethnic Chinese, but American through and through. Heck, their kids didn't even grow up speaking Chinese. The mom and dad wouldn't allow it. They said, "No, you guys are growing up in America. You learn to speak and read and write in English and do well in American schools and embrace the flag and embrace all the American values," because they had left China because China had given them a poor shake. It hadn't given them the fair shake that they wanted at life. And so they sought out the American dream from abroad and really made it happen and made a huge contribution to their community, and always nice to people, always bending over backwards to serve the community. I remember in high school at the time, there was a high school thing where they needed a catering service, and the dad, the owner of the restaurant, had never done catering before, and he went through all the expense to make this happen, because I believe it was the year before his daughter graduated from high school, and he wanted to make a good impression at the school, right, for his family and for his children, because he had 4 or 5 kids coming up through the system that were going to ultimately graduate from that high school. And so at his own expense, he funded all of the buffet gear that was needed, like the tong. He bought all this extra out of the restaurant magazine. I remember the big roll up to it. I helped him with it. I was there, and I put on like a Chinese uniform, and I was there serving with him. And I used my own car to ferry all of the equipment and food to and from the restaurant to the high school. And it was dynamite, man. We went in there and we represented the spirit of Chinese people as Americans, as an immigrant system that has made a contribution and never caused trouble and always been hardworking. And we provided the entire senior class, I forget which year it was, but we provided the entire senior class that year with a wonderful Chinese buffet that was just beautiful, a really beautiful thing. And he always respected me too, because anytime he needed like some additional help, like I was working on my basic Chinese and stuff at university, and if he needed help with translating, or he needed a local representative to go with him on various missions, I was always there to do that. And it really worked out well. So I truly believe in the spirit of 1776. And I believe that our forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Samuel Adams, George Washington, Paul Revere, all these guys that were at the Continental Congress and put their big fuck you to tyranny, John Hancock, right? All of those guys, they had the right idea. And that spirit still beats in the hearts and breasts of many Americans. And it's not something we should ever turn our back on and buy into this horse shit story of, oh, yeah, you came over here and you destroyed the natives and stuff. And that's a part of the story too. But that's not the story of the original impetus of the spirit. Those people, the early pilgrims, sought to interact with those local folks and give them just as much freedom and representation as they sought for themselves. It was only when there were borders, when there were skirmishes and savages who didn't know anything and weren't willing to integrate or work with the newfound peoples, when they came in and raped, murdered, and pillaged, they said, "Yeah, we can't stand for that," And there were some bad things done. I'm not saying that we shouldn't acknowledge those bad things, but the great spirit of freedom and justice for all, and that's what it was all about. And that's what we need to embrace going forward. We need to embrace the spirit of MAGA, the spirit of 1776, like old Alex Jones used to say. The answer to 1984 is 1776. And that's a beautiful thing, man. I totally agree with it. I'm on board. I think it's the right idea. I didn't let my voice be heard enough in the beginning, because every time I said something of interest back in 2016, I got shit thrown at me and people constantly attacked me. And there was so much blowback, right? So much vilification and threat of being canceled that I just kind of stayed quiet and just kept working hard. I did what I could, where I could to represent 1776, but I didn't stick my head above the crowd. I knew Mr. T was going to win then, and I told folks in my family and stuff, it'll never happen. No, it'll never happen. And they tried to vilify us and attack us. And then when he did win, they jumped on the floor with a dirty diaper and their thumb in their mouth. And they were screaming and yelling and crying and melting down just like they're doing now. And everything became better. The economy got better. Jobs increased. People had dignity again. The world respected America once again, right? He did really great trade deals. Pulled out of pacts that corporate career politicians had signed the American people into that they never wanted, and everything went well. And then in 2020, if you made any noise about it in either of those cycles, 2016, 2020, you got a community strike, you got shut down, you got kicked off the internet, people estranged you, right? That's the difference. They attacked us directly. And did we do the same to them when Donald Trump became president in 2016? No, we let them do their thing. Right? They're flying the rainbow flags. They're running around in chaos and destroying American cities. And did we vilify and estrange and attack them? No, because that's not what we do. And it's not what we've ever done. Right? Even in 2020, when we know what went down then, right? With all of the strangeness. Did we riot in the streets or do any kind of madness? No. No, we just put our nose back to the grindstone, work hard again, day to day, and try to make the world a better place. And now here it is again. And they're back on the floor, rolling around, mired in a filthy diaper, begging for someone to save them when nobody's coming to save you. Trump's not coming to save you. That foul, cackling crone that you thought was going to represent America in some way. Oh, good God. Thank God that didn't happen. Thank God the American people stepped up with a backbone and made the right choice. And he's not here to save anybody, but certainly there'll be at least a respite from the madness of the last 20 years, right? From just decades and decades of the infiltration of the Marxist communist left, trying to poison the Americans' people, trying to demean them to the point that they've got no fucking dignity left. There'll be a respite from it. A respite from it, but it's going to be brief. It's only 4 years, possibly. If Vance does a good job, he might be able to take over after that, and we might have 8 years. Hopefully the tide has shifted, and finally people will come back to center. They'll come back to truth. They'll come back to American values. They'll say these values are inalienable and cannot be infringed by government. They're going to roll back government. Right? They're going to roll back government interference in state affairs, roll back state interference in community affairs, and roll back the tyranny, the great dark night of tyranny that has cast its shadow for far too long over the American people. I'm hopeful. I know that you're hopeful, and it's got to be done at a grassroots level. Every American has to embrace the idea of making America great again. And I think I'm going to sign off with that because I've gone a little bit long in the tooth, but I wanted to stop in and say hi to everyone. Really great to see you out in the Ideas Room, Nunu, the traveler from ancient Lemuria and Mu and Atlantis, that time-traveling wizard of multi-dimensional space. Good to see you, sir. As foretold by Kim Clement. I'll have to check that out. I'm not familiar with that reference there. Trump 2 terms set aside between a lot of good to come. Oh yeah, very dark night for a very long time. Yes, God bless you, sir. God bless America, and God bless the fairly, duly elected United States President Donald J. Trump. God bless him and his family, Melania, all of his wonderful children. Right. I think that he represents the American people in a way that nobody else could. And like said himself, if there was a better man, then why didn't he step up and try to take the reins? So good on the American people. Good on all of you out there in Happy Land. Y'all good looking, sexy people. Keep on keeping on. Keep your nose to the grindstone, your head above water, and all of that happy horseshit. Make sure you guys hit the likes. check me out on the coffee page, and make America great again by doing good magic. God bless each and every one of you. And until next time, bye for now.